Good afternoon, good day to everybody, all our ACRAA members, ACRAA colleagues, and friends. We shall now start the ceremonial part of our 20th anniversary conference. And I would now like to present to you the chairman of ACRAA, Mr. Atsushi Masuda, to deliver his formal welcome remarks. Mr. Masuda, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning and good afternoon to everybody. I'd like to make a kind of welcoming remarks and at this opportunity. And today is a very important day because it's a once a year gathering of everybody. So that we'd like to make a kind of a lively exchange of discussion. That is what I wish. And ACRAA was established in 2001 September, and with support with the Bankers Association of the Asia. And this is maybe 21st the general meeting, and that means we are going to celebrate 20th anniversary. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining today for this invaluable general meeting. At the beginning, when the ACRAA started with the 15 rating agency from 5 countries, and if I'm not correct, I'm not wrong, and right now the 27 agencies from 14 regions and countries. So that means during 20 years, and because of everybody's efforts, our membership has been extended. At the beginning, we got to receive support from Asian Bankers Associations. And later that we are going to get a message from Chairman Acevedo. And Chairman Acevedo, thank you very much for joining today to this important anniversary general meeting. So this year, all the board members is re-elected. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to all the board members who served past 2 years. And maybe election result will be announced by secretary later. But I'd like to say thank you to all the board members because your support and efforts and guidance, and we can enjoy a lively exchange of discussion during the past course of the year, and also maybe a finish of a 2-year term. I'd like to say thank you very much. So this is maybe I have to cut short of welcome remarks, and so I'd like to congratulate 20th anniversary. So this is my welcome remarks, Santi.
Thank you very much, Chairman Masuda. Mr. Masuda, would you like to introduce your JCR president to deliver his keynote address?
Okay, thank you very much. JCR has participated at the beginning for facilitating to this initiative in parallel with the Bankers Association of the Asia. So we are very privileged and also honored to deliver this and commemorate the notes of my big boss. Mr. Shokichi Takagi, current president and CEO of Japan Credit Rating Agency. He graduated from Tokyo University Law Faculty in 1971 and immediately entered into the Ministry of Finance and joining to the bureaucrats in Japanese and official agencies. He experienced many bureaus from his long career as a bureaucrat, including securities bureaus and the tax bureaus, and also kind of treasury bureaus. And he served as a head of financial service agencies from 2002 to 2006. So he was commanding post to stabilize Japanese financial sector after those breakdown between Ministry of Finance and the financial service agencies. And he retired from this and FSA position 2006. He served as a chairman and CEO of Yucho Bank and American Life Insurance. Then he is appointed chairman and president of Japan Credit Rating Agency 2014. In 2018, he received a Medal of Honor from Japanese government. In Japanese government, the emperor is making a function to making giving to the endowing to the Medal of Honor. This medal is called Orders of the Secret Treasure. That is the name of honors, and he got this prize in 2018. So this is a outline that under his remarks was recorded 2 days ago because of his engagement today that he cannot participate. He is sending to recorded me.
I am Takagi, President of Japan Credit Rating Agency. I would like to extend my greetings on this occasion of the general meeting to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Association of Credit Rating Agency in Asia. Over the past 20 years, ACRAA has played a very important role in a wide range of areas. We would like to congratulate ACRAA for celebrating its 20th anniversary and thank all concerned for their cooperation. We have faced various challenges over the last 2 decades. In 2000, when ACRAA was established, the dot-com bubble collapsed. In 2009, the so-called Lehman shock triggered the global financial crisis. Last year, we were hit by a pandemic once every 100 years. In response to these major changes, the regulatory system has been improved and strengthened. Rating agencies should behave appropriately by collecting updated information on the laws and regulations and by preparing for possible risks. More recently, the global capital market is facing a paradigm shift towards a green and sustainable world. As a rating agency, it is our responsibility to provide an objective and reliable analysis of how ESG factors may affect long-term corporate performance. Amid drastic changes in the capital market, Asian rating agencies have to mutually strengthen the business relationships. These relationships are inevitable for the development of sustainable economic and capital markets in the Asian region, and the expectations for ACRAA are growing. JCR would like to continue to contribute to the further development of ACRAA. I would like to conclude my commemoration remarks in the hope that the situation will improve next year and we will be able to meet everyone in Tokyo. Thank you. See you in Tokyo next year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agi, for your presence and for your warm message to all of us in ACRAA. And thank you so much to JCR for being so much a part of ACRAA by sponsoring, in fact, the organization of ACRAA way back 21 years ago, actually. So now I would like to have the honor and privilege to introduce our next keynote speaker. He is the president and CEO of RCBC Bank, one of the leading banks in the Philippines. This person, a good friend, has been in banking for over 30 years. He started as trainee in Citibank way in 1987, and his last post was to be the person who led the Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau Global Markets Cluster of Citibank, and also treasurer of Citicorp International Limited. From there, he joined the PNB in 2010 and 2011 as president of Philippine National Bank. Subsequently moved to Union Bank as senior executive vice president, and since July 2019, he has been with RCBC and is its president and CEO. He finished Bachelor of Science in Physics, magna cum laude, in our own local University of San Carlos, and earned his MBA at the Asian Institute of Management, and attended the Advanced Management Program at the Harvard Business School and other schools where he earned certificate courses at Wharton, at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, at Johns Hopkins University, at Oxford University, and including a certificate course from the British Computer Society. I don't know whether you call him a technical person, but he is a wonderful person. It is my privilege again to introduce the chairman of the Asian Bankers Association, upon whom we look towards a very fruitful year of cooperation. Mr. Eugene S. Acevedo.
Thank you, my very good friend Santi. Chairman Atsushi Matsuda, Vice Chairman Fahim Ahmad, members of the Association of Credit Rating Agencies in Asia, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Eugene Acevedo, and I was recently elected chairman of the Asian Bankers Association. On a personal note, I just was listening to the conversations earlier about the temperature in Edinburgh of -1. I should be sending a note to my elder son because he just graduated there and still stuck there waiting for his booster shot. I'm sure he has enough money to buy warm clothes. Anyway, I've been looking forward to meeting you ever since Santi mentioned the partnership and the shared history between our organizations. Thank you for inviting me to speak today to express our solidarity with you. And I was hoping to do this live because I know how recordings can go bad, as I've seen earlier. Indeed, you know, these are tough times. And we need to work more closely together even. But we also need to look beyond the pandemic. Think 3, 5 years or even longer, because banking is evolving in an accelerated pace like we've never seen before. And credit rating is going through a similar transformation. There are 3 specific themes at the ABA, and I would like to share them with you today. It's digitization, it's cybersecurity, and climate change. First, with digitization, banks have lost market share to fintechs that are fast, that give great service, that charge cheaply, free even sometimes, and they don't have to make a profit for up to 10 years and still are highly valued. They also sell rudimentary credit scores based on alternative data. They are going after your business and mine. Our response together has been to act like fintechs ourselves, disrupting ourselves by collaborating with fintechs even. In the area of consumer and small business lending, for example, we ultimately have to lend real time, lend instantaneously. If an individual comes to our counters or sends via our app a request for a personal loan, we banks should be able to respond immediately with a credit decision, even if the customer has no previous credit record. We can no longer be dependent on existing credit card data alone or whatever is available from consumer finance companies. We now experiment on internal deposit and payments data, on information from telecoms and other utility companies. Our data scientists, thankfully, have become more creative and are testing credit scores that they generate. What is facilitating this information revolution is the sheer volume and velocity by which data is created. Add to that cheaper storage, readily available analytical skills, and more powerful computing power. We have, as a result, at our fingertips, incredible amount of actionable data about every single customer. We together have to embrace fintechs and position ourselves to exploit the opportunities in the world of instantaneous loans. Second, in cybersecurity and the related issue of privacy, the mega load of data comes with it the responsibility of keeping data safe. From a corporate customer standpoint, it is now crucial to assess the cybersecurity capabilities of companies that we study and rate. Maybe we can even rate each company's cyber readiness. I've been thinking about that because I asked that question myself. Now, from a consumer standpoint, we have to respect the privacy laws when we gather data, ensuring there is consent for each specific use. A consumer credit score has to be legally audited to ensure that there are no privacy violations. I think on cyber issue alone, we will all need to make deliberate changes in how we do business. And the third and final point, climate change. And I add to this ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance. A couple of years ago, the bank I lead was evaluated by a company which rates ESG competence and compliance. We were rated A before, we were upgraded to AA early this year. We also issued green and sustainable bonds and had to publicly disclose the projects that we funded. Recently, even our central bank released a new set of sustainability finance rules. And now, when we lend to companies, we have to make an assessment of each company's environmental and social effects, which requires more time for my credit officers. I am sharing this because while ESG ratings may be new, these are not radically different from what credit rating agencies, I think, already do. This activity even looks like a new business opportunity for all of us here. The three themes I mentioned, will make both our organizations busy, not just this year or next year, but probably over the next 3 years as we transform. To end, I wish you all a productive conference and a safe, exciting, and prosperous future. Please keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acevedo, Chairman of ABA, our dear partner. We are honored, we are privileged to have shared with you your thoughts on these very particular current issues. And all of us, the board and the CEOs of ACRAA are here, and we listen to what you said, and we will certainly include it in our agenda. Again, thank you very much for your participation.
Thanks so much, Santi. Thank you so much. I will now bid you farewell, and I will now jump to other stuff, trying to close the books in time for Christmas. Thank you.
We understand. We understand. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
that was the chairman
Bye.
of the Asian Bankers Association. And now we proceed to our conference. And this conference is important because we are being futuristic in a sense. What might the credit rating business be in the next 10 years? a bit presumptuous perhaps, because how can you really look 10 years from now? But we must try. And based on our history, and as ACRAA, we have had 20 years of history, based on our experience and based on the judgment that we have developed with our experience, we just have to look at the future and say, what might it be? So to lead us in this discussion, we have our chairman of ACRAA himself and our vice chairman to share their thoughts. And after listening to them, if you want to ask them questions, if you have your own contributions to the discussion, we shall have some time before we go to the annual meeting. So may I present to you Chairman of ACRAA, Mr. Atsushi Masuda.
Okay, thank you very much, Santi. It's my pleasure and also honor to give this sort of speech at this juncture. The subject itself is a very tall order. I don't have any crystal ball for looking into the next 10-year future. So in that sense, and I provide some elements to consider. And here, audience is a very leading position of the respective rating agencies. And I expect exchange of opinion. This is more important because of that is related to your insights of what is business plan of next 10 years. This is my subject of this and the short speech of 10 minutes. I try to cut it short, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so this is a past 20 years and the repeated crisis history. Asian crisis 97 and the 2008 global financial crisis, and last year the 2019-20 COVID pandemic. Big waves and repeated every 10 years. And so in that sense, and we can learn from a crisis. That and the lesson from a history of financial crisis is first, and all crises have a different phases. Causes, contagion channels, scale of the volatilities, measures, everything is different for all crises. And the prudential regulation evolves. The crisis also evolves. Volcker setting some institutional change. Now, all those new configuration of the institution is generated another source of risk. So it's a kind of indefinite, the vicious cycle of this sort of source of risk. And finally, we can learn about a crisis only from the crisis. Crisis is, I think, the living teacher for the analyst. And that is my short lesson from a crisis. And what will be our next 10 years? First, maybe important driving force is maybe recovery from a pandemic, out of which fiscal measure and the public debt is an unprecedented fiscal monetary easing results. And so far, I think this sort of fiscal policy is justifiable, but still we have a kind of mounting debt after this policy measures. How do we accommodate of those sort of public debt legacy? And another very important challenging of economic environment is change is the inflation resurgence, and which is very visible over United States market. This is a very important issue. Then next 10 years, very important is maybe Asia is growth source in the world economy. And the productivity increase is a very driving force. And income disparity is now focused as a result of those and the economic growth. And the supply chain in Asia is bringing to the next dimension, different dimension of economic integrations. Then what is different this time is maybe carbon neutrality, as Mr. Acevedo mentioned about this ESG. But quality of economic growth is different. Clean energy transition and innovations. Some of the elements is driving to this carbon neutrality. So this carbon neutral society is entail innovations to which will enable green development goal. And then capital market developments. Without capital market developments, no revenue growth for credit rating agency. So in that sense, this is a very important part. But still, prudential regulation and also most importantly, digitalization of the market is changing to the scope of capital market development. Next slide, please. Current status of the ecosystem. This is the United States NRSRO. We are licensed by NRSRO. So we are not the US agency, but we are part of this one. As you know, the rating market is oligopolistic. Big three, Fitch, S&P, Moody's is dominating the market. The revenue share is still as high as 93% in 2019. And the smaller share, smaller NRSO share is increased slightly, 5.8% of 2016 to the 6.7%, increased by 1%, but still big three dominates. Please go to the next one. And this one is a European system. And the big three share also that under 93.4% in the European rating market. And smaller agencies share is in general declined. So still oligopolistic, and the market structure is also applied to the Europe. And please, next one. This one is the development of credit rating agency in Asia. As you see, maybe late part of 80s, 90s, and many rating agencies who is gathering today here is created. So in that sense, and we have maybe a history of 20 or 30 years. Compared to that, and the S&P Moody's is established maybe Moody's is established 1909, and the S&P is 1917. So they have 100 years history. So in that sense, and there is still a gap existing to catch up. But what I'd like to stress here is JCR established major market in Japan, and also that Malaysia is established and dominant market share in Malaysia. And so in that sense, and every country has their own rating agency by own. And finally, this one is a factor related to the future of the credit rating agency. Next slide, please. And first, maybe most important is a credit rating agency serving as a reliable infrastructure for financing. But most focal point, most important priority is how can we get support from domestic institutional investors. Those are most important challenge that all the credit rating agencies face. Now that in the next 10 years, we are going to see evolution of the advanced quantitative method, like big data use or maybe AI. And we are going to apply spreads of this sort of application of the advanced methodology. Now, in order to expand our business spaces, more important service should be extended to the SMEs and also high yield issuers. And but question here is how can we serve better to the SMEs? And how can we service which is more convenient to the SMEs? That is a very important part. And issuer pay versus subscription pay. This one is related to the conflict of interest, but it's unsolved and important challenge of credit rating agencies. For ESG scores, as I discussed in the previous Chief Rating Officer sessions, revenue basis is now originated as a subscriber pay because the ESG score that the investor is purchasing service. But they are moving towards the issuer pay model because individual assessment is now increasing important. So in that sense, credit rating and the ESG rating is now coming up to the single business model. That is a kind of a challenge. And the transformation to the sustainable society, to what extent this second opinion or party opinion or verifiers operation business can be established or not. That is very important. Right now, it's a kind of a blue ocean turned to be red oceans. Everybody is making a kind of competitions. So in the end, and can we break monopolistic structure of the market, credit rating market? This remain an important task for next 30 years because we are catching up 100 years history of Big Three. So finally, go to the last page. This one is a kind of sketchy of the business model. As a rating agencies analyst, we are supposed to be an expert of business model, but we are not so good at analysis of credit rating agencies, the business model itself. So we have to develop our own data analysis of credit rating agencies' business model, maybe price and the publicity, marketing, and the customer relations. Those are important area and also basic area for all sort of business, including credit rating agency. Most important is how can we get our supports and also that recognition by domestic investors. This will be a part of essential core part of the credit rating agency's business model. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Masuda. That was very nice, very informative. And yes, it is a great challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
thinking about that we are, yes, Mr. Senti.
Yes, I was muted. Thank you very much, Mr. Masuda. You have given us a lot of things to think about. But before we entertain questions, comments, let's go to our next speaker. And after our Vice Chairman, Mr. Fahim Ahmad, and after him, let's have some interesting discussions among ourselves. Mr. Fahim Ahmad, our Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much. I've been very obliged that I've been invited. Faryal, if you can put up my
Okay. Do you have it? I can share it. Yes, no problem.
Yeah, you can share it, please. All the participants are nearly holding very high position with the rating agencies, and the rating agency, as Mr. Masuda said, it's a very what you call exclusive and a very different business. It's not run of the mill. For the participants, maybe information. Next year would be my 30 years how I started my business in 1992. There are many factors, I'm sure, like chief executives who are attending this, or the CROs, or who are reporting to the board. They have their own, what you call, their factors to try to peep into the future. Since last 29 years, there are mainly two factors which I was looking at very closely. Next slide, please. To see, next slide, yeah, stop here. How the economy of the global market and how the regulations are playing for the benefit of the participants. Now we have ratings outstanding in 16 jurisdictions, and we have offices in different countries. I was able to plan looking at these two factors very closely. What are the regulators saying about rating agencies, and where the economy of the global market taking shape? For example, Masuda-san also discussed of the world crisis since last century, but I will limit myself since 2010. Because you see, the issue is, I also look at the global market. If you look at the last 30 years, 40 years, it was a unipolar world. I will discuss this later on. But if you look at the crisis and look at the global, despite the crisis in 2010, the economy, the global world has moved into at least 1.78 folds. So look at it in 2010, it was $64 trillion. It hit about 84, it came down, but next slide, please. Now, if you look at the forecast by World Bank, in 2026, the global output GDP would be about $125 trillion. So it means all the economies are developing. So now we should look at which economies are developing and where our next 10 years will lead us to. Which are the openings, which are areas no. And so there are great opportunities also, like as I'm saying, we have expanded into 16 countries right now. We have rating outstanding through our different JVs. So now if you go ahead, Faryal, please, next. Now you look at the past trends. 2010, global bond market was about 82 trillion. Now it is 123 trillion. Equity market was 58 trillion. It is 105 trillion. Despite what has happened, the European crisis came, as Masuda Sen was saying, then bubble came in, and then the COVID, but still the global output, it is because the population continues to increase. So, I mean, there are many areas where we can find the opportunities, as I said. Now look at the local domestic bond markets. Now you can see, if you look at the bond market in 2010, Europeans were about 28%. USA was 37%. Now in 2020, USA is still there. European Union has a little lagged. Who are the winners is the emerging market, EM. Same thing goes with the capital markets. So this tells us a very good tale. 21% to 25 to 21 in the equity markets, they've slowed down, but in the bond market, they have really accelerated and expanded the emerging markets. Now, if you look at the domestic markets, the players are US 40%. This is now 2020. Japan is 14. EU is 27. So EU is a real big player, Japan including, and the EM. So it means outside USA, emerging markets, Japan and EU, we have to keep tracking them. What are the regulators saying there? What have their vision? Next slide, please. So this is what gives me a solace that my business, which I started 29 years back, is sustainable, at least because of the looking at the developments on the economic front. Now, look at what are the major regulators saying about rating agencies. EU Commission, after 2008, they have there on their website say that the CRAs failed to properly appreciate the risk. Then they go on to saying that they had incorrect ratings. And it's a very, if somebody comes and tells you on your face as a rating agency that you could not appreciate the risk and you had incorrect ratings, and then during the European crisis, debt crisis, they say that there was abrupt bond sell-offs and which triggered the crisis in Greece, Spain, and Italy, those places, Portugal. And then in 2009, EU established a regulatory oversight framework. ISMA was created in 2011, very important. Why important? Because as I was telling you in my previous slides, EU is 28% of the global market. So we have to follow what those regulators are saying. And then in 2013, they amended further and they start breathing in the neck of the rating agencies. And next, please. Now, in 2010, Dodd-Frank Act came in. At the same time period to control the rating agencies. Otherwise, in the unipolar world, since 1976, when NRSRO came in, I think S&P, Moody's, and there were the two rating agencies, then the DCR came in, and then Fitch was created. But look at Fitch. It was a European company, but it was again went back into USA. And so the Europeans does not have a dominance, but the USA companies have a dominance, which actually, which Masuda San was saying, it was a very, very important slide actually, which gives you who are your competition, next 10 years, what you have to do. So now it's very, I will just draw your here, the Dodd there is a CFA publication on their website by the gentleman Tang L. He says in his research that despite Dodd-Frank Act, which was to provide guidance and more regulatory framework rating agencies, he says in his research, as 2015 it was published, says that has not led to credit rating agencies providing more accurate and informative credit ratings. This is what third parties are thinking about us, our business. And then he further goes on to say they issue lower ratings and give more false warning. This false warning is very important because I'm involved in sovereign ratings in OIC countries, and I keep thinking, I keep deliberating with finance secretaries and finance ministers. No, please go back. That the speculative grade ratings issued by, and they continuously tinker with their ratings, the big three I'm talking about. That is what he's saying. These are all false warnings, meaning sub-investment grade, speculative grade, which they have been assigning, does not mean anything because it does not jive well with the prediction of the defaults. It means downgrades are less informative, and Moody's and Standard & Poor's have a strong incentive to protect their reputation. So they are hiding behind, they are happy to have lower ratings, not to give investor details. So this means this is a very big opportunity. Rating agencies who do their work well, who are more transparent and do their homework well, not to cut down on their press releases, not to cut down on their publications, on their rating reports, they would be the winner in coming years. So now it means the theory of too big to fail era is of past. So these clues gives me how we have to perform our business. Please go ahead. So next decade, I think for rating agencies would be a very demanding journey. As I have explained you how the big regulators are thinking about us, what has happened on the Dodd-Frank Act. But by the way, in 2020, Dodd-Frank Act has been updated and they are still coming more close to us now. Next slide, please. Now, regulatory front. Regulatory assertions in India, China, USA, latest. Very lately, we have seen regulators are coming and they are tracking their rating agencies. India is a very big market. China, mammoth market. USA, EU. If you look at EU websites by ISMA, they keep putting up pressure on rating agencies by putting up fines on them. And then ISMA's, I mean, like this is very important to understand. In 2019, actually, ISMA gave directions to rating agencies to factor in ESG in their rating methodology. The three rating agencies applied and they challenged the ISMA, but ISMA prevailed. As recent as 10th of October, S&P has announced their new rating global methodology taking into account ESG. I am also aware of one of the jurisdictions where we work by the central bank governor saying that environmental factors may be as important as for the capital risk as credit ratings and credit scores are. So this is another area. Next 10 years, we have to develop our expertise and professionalism and be very transparent, because then there will be an issue of greenwashing, like the people are saying that in the green bonds, the greenwashing is element is there. Now look at another regulatory change which is coming in USA. In July, the Congress has started hearing to overall credit bureaus, the FICO scores, and they want to put all these three, the three big credit bureaus, Equifax and the other, I'm just forgetting the name, the three of them putting into in charge where they could be centralized scoring system. So now look at, because you see the issue is the global market is expanding exponentially. It's going from 64 trillion now into maybe touching 200 trillion by 2030. Environment factors are there. So they are impacting and regulators asking us to take the factors into our own rating framework so our back testing can be affected. So we have to be very careful in our back testing and our default studies with these factors coming in. So I mean, what I think is the areas going forward would be the emerging market would play a very important role. SMEs for emerging market is the backbone, IPOs to control the equity markets, and then ethical finance, the sustainability bonds and the sustainable bonds and these SDGs, and then the Sharia governance. And another asset class which is emerging is the Islamic finance. And Islamic finance is very close to ethical finance and the environment areas. And the big data, which Masuda San also referred to, is very important. How I see it is the AI becomes important, but still the desktop will become an important element because the data coming in, but we still have to decipher it to serve the investors. Our announcements, our analysis may not be, you see, the people, investors may not put their money in the machine, for example, like the Bitcoin. So they still need some kind of a third party analysis so that they can trust. And the strengthening of the local domestic markets, domestic rating agencies would be the name of the game. That is why for my own personal business, I'm expanding into Africa, into all the emerging markets, putting up the offices where I see that those will be the winners at the end of the day. So please, the last slide perhaps. So the crystal ball. So the local economies will support local rating agencies, regulations like China, India, Malaysia, Russia, Turkey. Turkey has taken over, nationalized nearly. Russia is nationalized. They are very big. Malaysia, look at only 2 rating agencies. India, 7 rating agencies or 6 rating agencies playing an important role. China, I will just discuss this. And then stricter controls of sovereign ratings and global ratings, because as I said in the study, that you cannot take refuge into putting up and giving low ratings and you think think that you will protect your franchise. The investors may not like that, and the not like the advanced economies. Big data, as I said, as I made a comment, the desktop analysis would be there, would enhance, and the Chinese regulatory framework we have to watch, because now it's a bipolar world. Yuan, where yuan goes, where the Chinese regulators take us in the next 10 years is very important for us to look at how China shapes up, how they open their the debt market, whether they open it up or not freely. It should be a free debt market or not. So that will give us a very good view in next 10 years. So that was my submission. And thank you very much for your attention, everybody.